respect your time with the following questions and to give our candidates the opportunity to answer as many of them as possible in the time that's allotted to us this evening. I'm going to ask you to refrain from applauding for the rest of the evening until the very end. And we're going to have our first question, and Mr. Sheppy is going to be the one to first answer this question. And as a State Board of Education member, I'm extremely interested in this, as you know from our discussions. How do you know that quality instruction is taking place when you visit a school and walk around and walk into a classroom?
I find this question very interesting, and it's going to be hard for me to answer this in 2 minutes because our district right now is going through a process of applying for a Gates Foundation grant, and the whole focus of the grant is teacher effectiveness. And recently with our principals in our district, we had Tony Wagner, who is a Harvard professor, come in and do a little workshop with our principals. She showed them a clip of a teacher teaching in a classroom, and then after they were done, they had to grade what they thought how the teacher did. They turned those in, and when they got done grading it, we had all the way from an F to an A from our principals, okay? Which basically told us we're not even sure what quality instruction is in the classroom. So I think the first thing we have to do is we have to make sure that we all have an idea of what really is quality instruction. But when I walk into a classroom, what I expect to see is students engaged, students interested in what's going on. Not necessarily all lined up in rows and those kind of things, but students are actively involved. I ought to be able to go up to them and they ought to be able to tell me what they're learning and what their experiences are with whatever they're working on. I also think you have to look at student outcomes. Are we getting what we want from what we're doing in our instruction? Okay? And so if the student can tell me what it is they're learning and that process of how they're learning it, then I know that quality instruction is going on in that classroom. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sheppy. Mr. Rayburn.
Well, certainly there's, in terms of your own ability to assess whether there's quality instruction, a lot of that just comes from experience, and that experience comes from watching a lot of teachers, and a lot of teachers doing their work, and being able to understand with a broad spectrum of experience where your good teachers are and where your teachers are that aren't quite as good as some of your other teachers. Certainly that's been my experience in the education forums that I've been in, even in classrooms where I was not necessarily had much expertise on my own. When I walk into a class where a PhD in anthropology is teaching at the master's degree level, but you could still tell those kinds of things, as Brad mentioned. Are the students engaged and are they understanding the material? Assessments are key in everything that we do. And it's not necessarily where the students are, but how good was that teacher in bringing the students from one place to another in the time that they had those students. So if it's more important if you're a 5th grade teacher to know where they started and where they ended up, rather than just the one data point of where they ended up at what grade level when you were finished. And you can't know that without some accurate assessment system.
Thank you, Mr. Rayburn. Ms. Howell.
I'm going to answer the question within the context that I'm walking into the classrooms knowing what the appropriate curriculum should be, where the students are at, because I've already had some conversations and I've had data. In Steamboat, we went through a walk-through training, and when you walk into a classroom, you don't have to stay a long time. You look for certain characteristics. One, the environment, the engagement of the students. You look at the instructional strategies that the teacher is using. You look at whether or not there's some differentiation in the instruction. And you check whether or not what is being taught is the curriculum for that particular class in terms of age group and where they're at as far as achievement. You can also just sense a culture when you visit a school. We visited some schools today in Falcon 49, and it was just exciting. You can feel the culture, you can see the learning going on. And so you don't have to spend a tremendous amount of time. You have to be very focused on what are you looking for when you go into that classroom. And knowing enough about the school and where the students are at to make sure everything matches. And it's probably, for me, the most exciting and rewarding thing is to see the teacher who is not only technically knowledgeable, but as an artist, can just react to the situation based upon the needs of the child. So it doesn't take a lot, but you have to be very focused and know what you're looking for in the classroom.
Thank you. Ms. Howell, Mr. Ford.
I guess when I look at going into classrooms and looking at what's quality instruction, I think there's something that when you think about teaching, that there's an art and a science to it. Now, the art of teaching is about relationships. And so when you go in the classroom, and there is a feel about that, and you probably can sense that sometimes if you're a parent or you're a teacher or an administrator, that you can actually see that this teacher, in terms of its caring, whether it's in how the environment of the room is set up or how that person is engaging with students. The science of it is there higher level thinking questions being asked? If you've gone into that room multiple times, you also start to develop a pattern of being able to see whether there is differentiated instruction taking place, meaning that sometimes there's a large group, sometimes there's small groups, sometimes there's students actually leading some of the instruction. Those are things that you look for in terms of being able to see whether or not that there's really quality learning taking place. And then you go and follow that up as a superintendent with the principal and say, hey, what are you seeing? Here's my information that I saw in that classroom. The other thing I think is important to see is when you go into that classroom, does it disrupt the environment? Does it change the environment? Or does the class just keep on going? Because if it's keeping on going, everything just clicking and moving, it tells you that that teacher has the magic. The final thing is that when you're looking at a system like a big district like Falcon 49, you need to have some outside type of information. And I compliment you as a community and compliment the Board of Education that they have the guts to go and do an audit. They did it with Phi Delta Kappa, and some of you may not even know that as parents. That audit, less than 10%, I think it's actually less than 5% of all the districts in this country have had the guts to do the audit. And it gives you very good information to say, here's the strengths and weaknesses, and so you can blend those things with the things that you're seeing internally. So sometimes you need internal and external information in order to kind of be able to judge your effectiveness that are going on within classrooms.
Thank you.